Throughout history, in times of crisis and tragedy, American people look to leaders for one thing: leadership. Americans don't want to hear excuses. We don't want to hear self-congratulations. We don't want to hear scapegoating. It's a very simple concept. We want our leaders to lead. In the aftermath of Sunday's shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, a place of celebration for the LGBT community, Donald Trump proved that he is a terrible leader, as he is a terrible businessman. Trump proved that he's not the person to lead our nation through difficult times, or in fact, any time. Trump failed the most important of tests for a presidential candidate: how to respond in a crisis. When our citizens are under attack, how do you respond? Donald Trump failed that test. Trump proved that he's not the person to lead our nation through a crisis. He is not commander-in-chief material, underlined, underscored. But so it doesn't matter what the problem has been, Trump has failed. Trump isn't the person who wants to have his finger on the nuclear button, because he's clearly incapable of that responsibility. That's just not me saying it. Even the junior senator from Florida has questioned whether Trump can be trusted with such an enormous obligation. But the fact that Donald Trump can't be trusted with the nuclear codes hasn't stopped Senator Rubio or many other Republicans from endorsing Trump for the highest office in the land. There's absolutely no question, none. Donald Trump is not capable enough or experienced enough to this high level of responsibility. We expect more from a commander-in-chief. Here's how Trump responded to Sunday's massacre. Classic Trump. Within hours of the shooting, Trump first congratulated himself, and then began to immediately denigrate Muslim Americans. Trump then suggested our president and one of Secretary Clinton's aides may be in league with Islamic terrorists. Let me repeat that. Donald Trump suggested that President Obama and one of Secretary Clinton's aides may be in league with Islamic terrorists. Is this outrageous? Of course it is. Is it outrageous for Donald Trump to suggest that the President of the United States, our Commander-in-Chief, would support terrorists and the murder of innocent Americans? But yesterday, one day after the mass shooting is the worst in modern American history, Trump, the standard bearer for the Republican Party, went even further. Trump delivered one of the most un-American speeches ever from a major party nominee, ever. Trump was hateful. He was vicious. He was Donald Trump. Everything that Republicans knew him to be when they made him the party's nominee. Donald Trump used his remarks to foment hatred against millions of innocent Americans based solely on what? On their religion. He denigrated Muslim Americans, all 8 million of them. Republican nominees suggest that all Muslim Americans were complicit in the Orlando shooting, saying that they, Muslim Americans, and listen to this one, this is a direct quote, know what's going on, close quote. Trump also renewed his call for a ban on all Muslims coming to the United States. Trump's speech was, as one news outlet called it, and this direct quote, a dangerous mix of ignorance and arrogance, close quote. If you're the parent of a Muslim American, how do you explain his speech to your child? If you're not a Muslim parent, how do you explain Trump's speech to your child? You can't. How do you look your son or daughter in the eye and explain that a man running for president is telling your classmates to be suspicious of you, to doubt your loyalty to this country based upon your religion? Solely on your religion, purely on your religion. You can't explain it. I can't explain it. It's not possible to explain, because this level of hate is not comprehensible. It's incomprehensible that any presidential nominee would foster and promote systematic bigotry, as Trump often does. It's reprehensible and un-American for the nominee of any major party or any party to declare millions of Americans guilty and to prove innocent, purely by virtue of their religion. These are frightening times, and I understand that. And Trump's fear and paranoia are making us feel less safe. Trump is fanning the flames of violence and menace. Already there have been reports of threats and obscenities being yelled at Muslims in Florida, in Chicago, in Seattle, all across the country, and mosques around the country have been threatened. Donald Trump's rhetoric is encouraging this scary behavior. What we have seen from Trump in the 2 days since the Orlando shooting is rank and it's reckless. But no one should be surprised. This is vintage Donald Trump. Contrast Donald Trump's actions with the response from our nation's Muslim communities. Muslim leaders all over America are some of the first to condemn this attack and rally in support of the LGBT community. And the Muslim community has taken part in the blood drive to help the victims of the attack, as they always step forward. While Americans within the Muslim and LGBT communities are trying to unite Americans in the aftermath of Sunday's shooting, Donald Trump is doing just the opposite. He's doing what he's so good at doing, dividing. And then in the wake of this awful massacre, Trump tried to cast himself as a friend of the LGBT community. How about that? But it didn't take minutes for a spokesman for the Human Rights Campaign, the nation's largest gay rights group, stating that Trump is, quote, no friend of the community. What does it say about the Republican Party? That they're endorsing this vile man? Doesn't say much. What does it say about Republican senators that they're backing Trump for president? Not much. What does it say about Senate Republican leadership, about the Senate Republican leader, that he's supporting Trump? Not much. Every time the senior senator from Kentucky reaffirms his commitment to support Trump, he's validating Trump's behavior. He's giving credence to Donald Trump's rabid anti-everything speech. His anti-American stances against Muslims, women, Latinos, blacks, people with disabilities, immigrants, veterans, and others. If they, senators I've mentioned, accept this kind of rhetoric as part of our political dialogue, they're all guilty of normalizing hatred. Senate Republicans are doing just that. When the leader of a major party is promoting unhinged conspiracy theories and calling for hatred against his fellow Americans based solely on their religion, we're in dangerous and uncharted waters. We must make clear that Donald Trump does not speak for us. I'm trying to do that. We must stand arm in arm with our Muslim allies around the world who have been victims of terrorism, who say to the radicals, not in my name. Not in my name. And remember, Muslims around the world are helping us defeat the terrorist attacks. Who has suffered so much because of this crazy brand of hatred? Who has suffered more than anyone else? Muslims. We don't know how many are dead in Iraq following the invasion, 500,000. We know at least 300,000 in Syria. They're all Muslims. We must stand arm in arm with our Muslim allies around the world who have been victims of this terrorism. Any Republican who cherishes the American values of religious freedom and tolerance should immediately do the same. Say, not in my name. Republican senators should say, not in my name. Republicans must do what they have had they must do what they haven't had the courage to do. Stand up to Trump and say no more, stop it. He's not a leader. He's unfit to be our president, unfit to stand for the values upon which this great country was founded. As for the Republican leader in the Senate, Senator McConnell should be in the be the first to condemn Trump's hateful rhetoric and reject his presidential candidacy. Let's hope the senior senator from Kentucky can bring himself to do just that and do it soon.